Hey everyone, we have a powerful story for you today dealing with bullying and teen suicide. As you know, if you follow us, we professionally speak, teach, and write on issues of grief, crisis, and trauma. One of the most important things that we speak on is the issue of suicide, preventing it, supporting those who are suicidal, as well as helping those grieving the loss of a loved one to suicide. And this one really focuses, like I said, on teen suicide.
Yeah, I remember we met this young lady at a suicide conference that we were at, and she had this just amazing personality, and she was so confident, and she didn't have a speck of hair on her head, but she just carried herself in a really a fierce way, I'd say, and but yet she was a person who had been severely bullied, and took quite a while for the authorities to do anything at her school, and then her mother stepped forward, but she tells her story, and then it's a story about how she coped with it, and even when she was suicidal her own self, and how she just kind of came out of it. Now she's got this amazing story, and what she's doing out in the schools and stuff with young teenagers is really amazing. So here's Cam's story.
My name is Camille Paddock. I run an anti-bullying non-profit organization called Cam's Dare to Be Different, where I basically just share my story with different schools and, give my little message about being kind to people.
Camille, we want you to start by just telling us your story. What happened in your own life, your experience of bullying that led you to be such I would say an activist. Is that the right word in this field?
Yeah, I would say that. When I was in 4th grade, my mom found a little spot, a bald spot, on the back of my head. And we didn't really know what it was, and we went to tons of doctors that told me absurd different things about why I was losing my hair. One told me that I was stressed out. That didn't really make sense for an 8-year-old. So we went to another doctor, and he told me that I wore my hair in ponytails too much, and I used too much product in my hair. And it was really hard going through that time because we didn't know what was happening, and all these doctors were telling us things that didn't make sense. And we finally found a doctor that said, oh, it's alopecia areata and there's nothing you can do. So that was a little discouraging, and we went to another doctor, and he said, yes, it's alopecia, and here's what you can do. There was different treatments, but there was no cure, and nothing was guaranteed. So for a few years, we did shampoos, topical treatments. I even did oral steroids, but nothing seemed to work. So we just kind of gave up and said, it is what it is, and if this is what God has intended for me, then so be it. Well, during this time, my classmates also started to take notice that I was losing my hair. And, it didn't really bother me at first because, I was an 8-year-old. I wasn't worried about my hair, about my makeup. I was worried about, playing Foursquare outside. So I didn't really mind, when they said, little things here and there. But slowly, they started to get under my skin. And they started to see that, this confident girl was capable of being brought down, and I think they sort of used that against me. And it turned from teasing to bullying very quickly when we got to middle school. The internet started becoming a big thing, and, all those 12-year-olds had Facebooks, and they would write terrible messages to me, telling me to kill myself, telling me I was a freak. They would meow at me in the hallway because they called me a hairless cat. That was their name of choice. They spread terrible rumors about me, and they isolated me from my entire friend group. I was left with, I would say, 2 friends that I could actually count on. And, being in middle school, I think everyone can kind of say that you're trying to fit in. You're trying to find yourself. You're trying to find your friend group. And being isolated from my own friends was one of the hardest things I'd ever had to go through. And it kind of put me into a pit of depression. And I didn't feel like myself anymore. And when I looked in the mirror, I didn't know who I was. And I didn't know why they were doing this to me. And for a while, I kind of lost my faith, and I was angry that first I was losing my hair, and that second, people were picking on me for it and bullying me because of it. And I started to self-harm. I didn't want to live anymore. I planned my suicide attempt. I felt like there was no place for me in this earth, that I had no place and I had nowhere to go. Because if all my friends hated me, what else did I have?
How old were you when a lot of this was going on and when you first started to get into that pit of depression? And then how long did that sort of go on?
I would say it started around 7th grade. This was when the bullying got really bad. And, my mom had seen everything on Facebook, all these messages, and I hadn't really told her because I thought I could deal with it myself. And she said, Camille, this is bullying and this is not acceptable. You can't handle this anymore. We need to talk to the school. So I said, okay. And she printed out everything that the girls had said. It was like a huge stack. It was ridiculous. Yeah, so my mom, she went to the dean. And the dean took a look at the papers, and she saw the names, and she said, oh, well, I know the parents of these kids, and these are good kids. And my mom said, well, yeah, these are good kids, but they're bullying my daughter. And the dean said, okay, we'll take care of it. I'll call Camille into my office and talk to her tomorrow. So I went to school, and she called me down to her office, and she said, so I hear that you're having a problem. And I said, yeah. I've been trying to deal with it for the past year, but, I just don't know what to do anymore. They're not stopping. And she said, well, Camille, everybody goes through bullying in middle school. It's just a phase. And, she told me about her story that she went through bullying a little bit because of her accent. She was from the South and she moved up north when she was in middle school. And I said, okay. And then she said, girls will be girls. And she said, if I pull these girls into my office and say something to them, it'll just get worse for you. You don't want me to do that now, do you? And, I was, 12 years old, 13 years old. I didn't know how to respond back to this adult. So, I said, okay. And I left and, I told my mom what happened. And that's kind of what started this revolution. We continued to go into the school and tried to climb, and nobody was really helping me. And that sort of helped me go back into this pit of depression. I wasn't being helped by my school, and I just felt worthless. Like, not even my school will fight for me. And that's when all of this brought on, the self-harm, suicidal thoughts, the suicide attempt. Just my isolation from not only my few friends, but from my family. I would lock myself in my room and just cry. I've always been a straight A student. I'm kind of a nerd, what I like to call myself. And my grades started dropping because I couldn't focus on my homework. When I was in school, I couldn't focus because there was people all around me that were wanting to bury me underneath my ground. And I didn't know how to deal with it or how to hold myself up. So it just all went downhill.
Tell me a little bit about the self-harm. A lot of people don't know that or understand. First, tell me what you were doing, and then maybe explain how it helped release some of that pain you were experiencing.
I don't really remember how I got the idea or how it even popped into my head. I'm not sure anybody can really say that. But I started using razors to cut my wrists. And I guess it was just like the physical pain, taking away that emotional pain, making me forget is what helped. And, it just made me feel better. And my parents actually found out because, you can't really hide your arms that well. And instead of me, telling them the truth and telling them that I was in this dark place and that I needed help, I lied. And I told them that I wasn't doing it anymore and that I was fine. And they believed me. I was a pretty good liar, I guess you could say. So I moved from cutting on my wrist to cutting on a place where they couldn't see, which was on my hips. And it just made me feel better. Just that physical pain, taking away the emotional pain, just made it feel like I could deal with it.
And when did that escalate into thoughts of suicide?
I would say the middle of 7th grade year was probably the worst. And leading into the 8th grade was probably one of the worst times. I've been self-harming for like a few months at that point, and just nothing was getting better. And, the gloomy months were coming upon us, and, I wasn't hanging out with my friends, and I was isolating myself from my family, and I kind of hit a point where, it's not going to get better. There's no coming out of this. You go through those thoughts where nobody cares, nobody wants me around, and I kind of hit a breaking point where one night I was sitting in my room and I realized I need to do this. I have to do this. There's no point. Why should I go on when nothing's getting better? And that's when I started to write my note. And I thought that I could do it. I thought that I could carry through with it. But the day I was planning on killing myself, I planned it on a day where no one would be home. My mom was taking my little brother to his basketball practice. My dad was working late that night, and my sister was at a friend's house. So I thought, that was the perfect day. And my sister told me that she was at a friend's house, and she kind of had this feeling in her stomach like something wasn't right. Just like that uneasy feeling, And I think that was kind of God's way of saying, you need to go home. So I didn't know any of this, and, I was just sitting in my room getting everything ready, and I heard the garage open. And I was angry. I was so angry. This was finally my moment to be happy, and somebody had to take that away from me. And it's so twisted that I was thinking that way. So, I hid everything, and, I pretended like I was reading or something, and I didn't know who had come home, and she came upstairs and knocked on my door and said, "Camille, are you okay?" So I opened my door, and she said, "I just wasn't feeling well, and I decided to come home. I knew that you were alone. I just want to make sure you're okay." And that's when it hit me that I couldn't go through with this. My big sister was there for me at my darkest point, and she had always been my rock. And I finally realized somebody cared about me. Even if she didn't show it every single day, even if she didn't hang out with me every single day, she cared about me. And I kind of started thinking about what would have happened if she didn't come home right away. My big sister would have found me dead. And just that thought alone made me mad at myself, mad at my bullies that I let them do this to me, and, mad at myself that I let myself get to this point that I never even thought I could get to. So I guess that sort of led into my organization. So, the summer of 8th grade, or the summer going into 8th grade, was good. I was away from everything. I deleted everything on Facebook. I didn't really even go on social media anymore. I was going on vacations with my family. We had a boat, so, we went skiing and stuff. And I just had a really good summer. And I was kind of excited to go back to 8th grade. We were top of the food chain, the big 8th graders. And it was my last year of middle school, and I knew that everything was going to get better in high school. I just had this positive outlook because of my family. And my sister was a junior at the time in high school, and she was on the cheerleading squad. And I went to our school's rival football game, which was Huntley versus Jacobs. We're still a big rival. Just had to put that in there. So we went to watch the game, and I went to just watch her cheer. And I went with one of my friends. And, that's when it kind of hit me that it wasn't over. A group of the bullies turned from 5, 10 girls to 25, 30 kids that followed me around the game, screaming at me, calling me a hairless cat, telling me I'm worthless in front of all of these people, and nobody did or said anything to help me, not even the girl that I was with. And instead of getting sad and depressed again, I got angry. I was mad that this was still going on. And I told my mom, and she got angry too, and I think she was happy that I was mad. And she was happy that I finally had this spark in me to do something and to fight. So we went into the school, and we talked to the vice principal. And so our school was going through a lot of transitions, and we had a different principal and a different vice principal. And we had a new dean. So the new people didn't really know what had been going on for the past 2 years. So when we went in, Mama Bear Claus came out, and she's like, they need to be suspended. And the vice principal was like, whoa, what's going on? We can't suspend these girls for one-time incident. And my mom was like, what do you mean a one-time incident? This has been going on for 2 years. 2 years. So they said, okay, well, let's go look at her file. So they went, and there was no file. The dean from the previous year had thrown everything away in an attempt to sweep it under the rug, which is what a lot of schools do when it comes to bullying. So they told me, we don't have anything on file, so we can't do anything but, call the parents and tell them what had happened and, put you in counseling with the girls. So I had to sit in a room with my bullies and listen to them tell the counselor, we were just having a bad day and we took it out on Camille. And, after listening to so many times of them saying that, I was like, Mom, this is enough. I need to do something. So she's like, well, why don't you write a letter to the superintendent? And I did. And it ended up being 3 pages long of everything. I just poured my heart out to this man, and I dropped it off at his office. And the next day, he came to my school, and he called me down. And he said, what has been going on is unacceptable, and I will not stand for this anymore. So he called the bullies in, and he told them, if you are to do or to say anything at all that makes Camille feel bad about herself, you will be expelled. And this will carry on throughout all of high school. And that was when, the bullying stopped, because they were afraid to get expelled. But, I still had to deal with all of those feelings and all of those emotions. And that's when my mom said, well, why don't you start a blog? And I was like, no, maybe not a blog. And we were just kind of bouncing ideas around, and we came up with a Facebook page. So I started a Facebook page, and I called it Dare to Be Different. Because, everybody has something that makes them different. And why not embrace that? So my page started off as a blog. I vented, I shared my story, I put, inspiring quotes, videos that you could find on Facebook nowadays, and kids started to reach out to me almost immediately, to tell me about their experiences with bullying, depression, suicidal thoughts, and all of that. And it was empowering to know that by sharing my story of bullying and standing up, that it helped them go to their school and make a change in their life. And I guess that was sort of my therapy. So after a few months of my blog, I got invited to share my story as a speech at a local cheer gym. They were having problems on the team. I'd been a cheerleader my entire life, so they knew me. And I said, okay, I was still really shy. I kind of walked with my head down a lot. Didn't really have a whole lot of self-esteem. And, my mom said, I'll come with you. I know you're afraid. And, she started talking for me because, I was really anxious and I didn't feel comfortable sharing my story. So, she started talking, and then slowly, I'd add things in here and there. And, by the end of it, it was only me talking instead of my mom. And she kind of sparked that and empowered me to stand up and have a voice. And at the end of my speech, all the girls were crying. And it was just so amazing to see that I had finally made a change in these girls' lives. And I had some of them coming up to me saying, I'm being bullied at school, and now girls on the team are picking on me, and if you can get through it as a 14-year-old, I can get through it as a 16-year-old, as an 18-year-old. And some of the girls came up to me and said, I didn't realize how much my words can hurt people. And I think that is one of the most important things, and that's why I do what I do. Because most people don't know how much their words can affect others. And it's amazing that I have the ability to, help people see that. So from there, everything just blew up, I guess, so to speak. I met a manager, and she helped me get my 501c3, my non-for-profit. Then I started doing speeches at schools. My first school was a high school. Now, I was still 14. I was a freshman. So all of these kids were either my age or older. And it was a little scary at first. I walked in, and there was 1,400 kids flooding into the gym. And I looked at my mom, and she's like, "You're okay. You're okay." And I almost bolted. It went through my head. I was like, I could just leave now. It's okay. I'll steal the car, It'll be okay. And my mom gave me a little pep talk beforehand. She's like, "You can do this. You're fine. If you could do this, you could do anything." So I said, okay. And I stood in front of the podium, and I started talking. And, normally high school kids are loud, rambunctious. They're whispering to their friends and, moving around so you can hear sound. Once I started speaking, you could probably hear a pin drop. It was so quiet. And, at the end of it, I allowed questions, and then there were so many questions coming in. And, one person stood up and said, "Thank you for coming. We have so many speakers that come in and talk about bullying, but I think that your story actually got through to kids. And I hope that my classmates can see that as well." And then the principal got in front of the school and said, "You need to go back to class now, but if you would like to come talk to Cam one-on-one, feel free." So, I turned around to get my drink of water. I was feeling really good. I was really glad that I decided to do this. So I turned back around, and I was engulfed by this huge crowd of people. It was insane. I would say there was almost 50 boys and girls just wanting to say something to me. Some just wanted a hug. Some wanted to say, "I've been bullied too. It's good to see that you're doing this." Some said that they were bullies themselves, and that I kind of helped change their perspective. And then there was one girl, and the principal told me about her before I did my speech, and she had been having a lot of trouble. She'd been in and out of the hospital. She had lots of suicide attempts, and that nobody could really get through to her. And by the time everyone cleared out, she was standing in the corner, just kind of like sitting with her arms crossed and her head down. And she looked up at me, and she saw that everyone had finally left, and she just came running across the gym, and she just hugged me and started sobbing. And we stood like that for almost 10 minutes. Everyone in the room was crying at that point. And when she finally let go, she said, "You get it. There's finally somebody who understands." And I think that was the moment when I realized that I have to keep doing this. And it was moments like that that helped me build my self-esteem and helped me build my self-confidence, because not only was I helping these girls and boys who were battling similar demons as I had, they were helping me, and they didn't even know it. So that was sort of the turning point in my life, and from there I just carried on. I spoke at different high schools, different middle schools, which I think is the most important, and even elementary school kids, just not sharing the dark parts, but, just really telling them that, being kind is a good thing, and that spreading compassion and, including people and, things like that really gets through to them and helps them understand the importance of, embracing your differences is kind of a good stepping stone before they go on to middle school and high school.
Camille, tell me, first of all, what are your views on the internet? We do hear so much about bullying and how the internet has become this sort of gateway, or has sort of magnified what has been a long-term problem, but it's made it worse. Mm-hmm. And then also talk a little bit about how you've used the internet for good.
Yeah, so it's kind of obvious that the internet can be used for terrible, terrible things. I mean, me, myself, going through the bullying, it was mostly over the internet and social media, and, people can use it as a place to hide. It's hard to go up to somebody in person and say, "You're ugly." But it's easy to sit behind your computer screen or behind your phone and say, "You're ugly." people don't really have to go face to face anymore. And that makes it scary. But also, it's kind of a beautiful thing. We have the ability to talk to people all across the United States and all across the whole world. And in that sense, the internet has kind of saved my life in a way where I've been able to talk to kids and help encourage them to stand up for themselves. And the same way that I've helped them, they've also helped me. So, without the internet and without this ability to talk to people from all over the world and share experiences, I couldn't say that I would be the person I am today.
Me too. But and I know that when we talk about bullying, we still think of it primarily with young people. Mm-hmm. But it's not exclusively young people, mm-hmm. particularly via social media. I hear stories all the time about people well into adulthood being bullied. And do you feel like there is, both through the advent of the internet and social media, but also just a higher level of sort of that, the toxic message to one another? Do you see that in our society today? And what would you say we need to look at to address that problem, not just with young people, but in general?
I've had so many adults come up to me and, tell me that they have been bullied or that they are still being bullied. And I think we're living in a society today where everyone is sort of comparing themselves to other people. And, you're scrolling through Instagram and you're seeing people's highlights. You're seeing them on vacation. You're seeing them with their makeup on or, whatever it is that they're doing. And it sort of brings you into this point where you're jealous. And I think that is the reason why we have so much negativity in society today. But I think that just realizing how important it is to be kind and not to get caught up in your own life and to realize that, everybody has a life and everybody goes through struggles and everybody experiences somewhat similar things to you, that people can start to find more compassion inside their heart. And I think that once you do that, nothing can make you jealous. And when you see people on vacation, a place where you would love to go, you're happy for them instead of saying, oh, well, I wish I could do that. My life sucks. And I think that once people start to realize that, our world would be such a better place.
I know you did have an experience with counseling and that your mom certainly did intervene even prior to the suicide attempt to try to get you mental health assistance. Can you tell me your story with that?
Mm-hmm. So once my parents found out that I was self-harming, they kind of took it upon themselves to take me to a counselor, And it took a lot for me to open up. I went to the first counselor and she kind of I didn't get the feeling that she cared. She kind of sat there and was like, so what are your problems? And I was like, what do you mean, what are my problems? Like, did you really just ask me that? So, I didn't really open up, and my mom said, okay, well, I'm not giving up, and we're going to another one. So she took me to another one, and it took me about 4 counselors until I finally found one that I really liked. His office was really just calming, and I got the sense that he was a trusting person, and I was really comfortable with him. And I completely opened my heart to him and just put everything out on the line. I had told my parents that I was not self-harming anymore, and I told him that wasn't true. And, I just put it all out on the line. And he said, of course, that they needed to know. And I knew that, and I knew telling him that I was eventually going to have to tell my parents. And I said to him, please just let me tell them. I'm not ready today. I'm not going to hurt myself. I'm not going to kill myself. But I need to tell them this on my own. And he looked me in the eye and he said, okay, I will let you tell them. And he called my mom in to kind of, talk about some things and kind of debrief her about everything. And he told her. And that kind of broke my trust. And that's when I sort of lost my faith in therapists. Kind of ironic how I want to be a therapist now. But when I talk to kids, the first thing I tell them is that you should consult a professional. I am only a child. I have not studied this. I do not have a degree. My advice is solely from my past experiences, and that finding a person that you can confide in and that who will actually be able to give you real help is important. And I've had many friends that have been going to counseling for years, and they find a person that they just click with. And I wish that I would have found that person that I could just click with and trust for years, because I'd probably still be seeing him today. We all go through things that sometimes you just need a person to talk to. But when I talk to, groups of counselors or therapists, my most important thing to say to them is when somebody tells you that they want to do something on their own and they're telling you they're not in harm, just to let them do it. I know it was hard for him because he was kind of stuck between a hard place. I was 14 years old telling him that I was still cutting myself, and he probably felt like I need to tell her mom because she has to know, even though I told him I really wanted to tell him. So I think that he was just kind of stuck between a hard place, and, he might have regrets on that, but I kind of wish that
You're
he
being
would
really
have
generous. It was not good. And let me say, as a therapist, that I'm sorry that you had that experience. Because if he had thought that you were at risk of taking your own life, but you promised him you weren't.
Mm-hmm.
And to build that trust, your mom needed to know. But he needed to not lie to you about it.
Yeah.
Or if he thought he needed to tell her that day, rather than saying, okay, I'll let you tell her, he should have just looked at you and said, Camille, I know you want to tell your mom, but we're going to need to do it today. So let me tell you why I think we need to do it today, and I do want you to do it, but we're not leaving here until you do it. Or something. There were a lot of ways around that would have not violated your confidence in that way. So I'm sorry that happened. But it's hard. I will say it's always hard when you're seeing somebody underage to know who is your commitment to and how do you do that. But that doesn't excuse, there were a lot of other routes to keeping you safe other than that one. So I'm sorry that happened. But that story is good for other therapists to know so that we can dialogue about, okay, what would have been the other things that we could do in this situation so as to not. Because the number one thing is that rapport with you and that feeling of safety that you needed, and that was gone. So, but know that all therapists don't do that.
I know. I have friends that go to amazing therapists, and they've had such great experiences. And that's why I always recommend going to see somebody.
Yeah. And, it may be the very thing that drives you to be a therapist, because there are people who become doctors because they had a bad experience. There are people who become therapists because they had a bad experience, and they want people to have something different than what they had too. So it may be the path. What would you want helpers in general, counselors, chaplains, people who are trying to help young people who experience bullying or even maybe suicidal, what would you want them to know? What are some of the key things that's who we teach? So you have this opportunity to now say, here are some messages that you need to understand about kids who are depressed, kids who are suicidal, kids who are being bullied.
I think the most important thing is to let them know that they're not alone. When I was in that dark place, I was isolated. I felt like there was nobody there for me, and I had so many people around me that were supporting me, and I didn't realize that. So I think that if you're trying to help somebody who is suicidal or in that pit of depression, to let them know they are not alone, and that they do not have to be alone, and that they can fight with the person who's helping them, and just being there for them and just listening. Sometimes all people need is just somebody to listen to them and not cut them off and say, oh, this or this, but just be a good listener.
And in some situations you won't be able to fix it. And thank goodness I just wanted to stand up and applaud for the superintendent who did finally do the right thing and fix it. But what happens when you can't stop the bullying. You can't fix what's wrong. How can you help someone?
I think just building their self-esteem, because you can't bully a kid that is confident. And just letting them know that they are worthy and that these bullies are picking on them because of their jealousy or their own insecurities or for whatever reason they're doing it. But it's not because of the victim, that they can be strong and that's when it'll probably stop. I mean, when you go up to someone and you're like, oh, you're ugly, and the person's like, okay, whatever, like, they're not going to get that satisfaction of hurting somebody. So I think that if the school isn't doing anything and nobody is standing up, just to build that kid's self-confidence and let them know that they are worthy and that they deserve to be happy.
Do you have a faith? You did talk about God, so
Yes.
I'm guessing you do. Tell me a little bit about that and how this whole experience has impacted your personal relationship with God and your faith.
So we've always been a religious family, going to church on Sundays, and I've always had, a relationship with God. And when I started losing my hair, my mom looked at me and she said, this is happening for a reason. And God has a path for you. And we might not be able to see it right now, but I promise someday that He will reveal it and that you will find your purpose. And I always sort of believed that. There has to be a reason for things. And when I started getting bullied, I sort of lost my faith. I completely lost my faith. Because I thought, if God is real, why would He be letting this happen? First putting me through losing my hair, then putting me through the bullying. For nights I cried and I said, if He's real, then I don't want anything to do with it. Why would He do this? And after I started my organization and I started speaking, one night we were in the car coming back from one of the talks, and I realized this is why I had to go through all of this. This is why I had to lose my hair. This is why I had to reach rock bottom in order to help other people. And this is my purpose in life. And that's when I sort of realized that, He was doing a good thing. And that He wasn't doing this to hurt me or to bring me down. He was doing it to reveal my purpose. And I think that's one of the most amazing feelings. And I pray that everybody gets to have that moment where they realize their purpose in life. It's the most amazing feeling in the world. And I'm so lucky that I was able to realize that at the young age of 14.
That story that you told about the girl who came and hugged you in the gym and cried and said, you get it. You wouldn't have if you hadn't gone through that, right?
Exactly.
So there was only one path there,
Yeah.
as much as that sucks,
Yeah.
that you had to go through that
Exactly, yeah.
to be in the position you are now, to be able to help other people. What are some of your dreams and aspirations for the future? Now you are in your senior year.
Yes.
So what are you thinking about for the future?
Just being myself. I'm excited to go to college and have a good group of friends and hopefully choose something to study and just immerse myself in learning. I've always loved learning, and I want to continue Cam's Dare to Be Different. I'm not exactly sure where this will go. I'm hoping that I can take this throughout my entire life and use my experiences to help others and use my speaking abilities to teach other kids that they can speak, because I'm starting to grow up. I am 18 years old. I will only be able to relate to kids for so much longer. I'm starting to lose that window, and I want other kids who are 15 and 16 years old to find their voice, to stand up for what they believe in. So I'm hoping to kind of start maybe a little chapter of Cam's Dare to Be Different, maybe in schools across the nation.
Since you had started your Facebook page and you started the speaking, have any of your bullies had that conversation where they apologized to you or came back to you to just talk about it?
So I would say there were two main bullies, the girls who started it all. And then there was the surrounding group of about 10 to 15 girls and then boys. I've had a few boys come and apologize to me after seeing my page, and I had 3 girls come apologize that were a part of like the bigger group, and say we didn't realize what we were doing. We're so sorry. We turned our back on you, and they asked if we could be friends. And I accepted their apology, and I said, I forgive you, but I don't think I would be able to trust you again after what you did. So while we can be friendly and, say hi and smile in the hallways, I don't think that we would be able to have that friendship anymore. And just recently, I had the main bully send me a message on Facebook. And when it popped up on my phone, my heart kind of sank. And, I didn't want to open it right away because I didn't know what it would say. And there was a part of me that was that scared little girl again, afraid that she was trying to hurt me. So, I gave it a few hours, and I finally opened it. And it was a half-hearted apology, saying, that she's seeing what I'm doing and that it's wonderful that I'm able to help people, but that I was just as much of a bully to her, and that I hurt all of them. And I was like, I started laughing. I was like, she put me through all of these years of hell, and she's still trying to bring me down. So, I wrote her this long message explaining everything that I had gone through that was behind the scenes, that they didn't get to see. And I just told her, I was never a bully to you, and you know that. So don't try to bring me back to that place because you can't. I said, I wish you the best, and I hope that you can move on because I have. And I told her that I was grateful that she had the courage to reach out to me and apologize, but just that I needed to be left alone, and that, I didn't say this, but I didn't need that negativity in my life anymore. And that was it. So for so long, I thought that I wanted an apology, and I thought that I wanted them to finally realize what they were doing and finally realize that they were wrong. And a part of me wanted them to change and to be better people because of this experience. And after she sent me that message, I realized that some people don't change, and that sometimes mean girls will be mean girls, and that, eventually everyone will get their karma. And I kind of made peace with the fact that I will never get a real apology. And I don't think I need one.
Have you struggled at all with forgiveness for them? Or?
For a while, I still have to go to school with them. And freshman year was probably the hardest for me because I still had to see them in the hallways, and I had to see them having their fun, and I was mad. I was mad that they didn't get in trouble. I was mad that nothing happened to them and that they just got to go on living their lives like nothing in the world mattered. And I finally realized that, what comes around goes around, and that eventually they'll get their karma, and that I don't need to worry about them because I'm in a better place, and I am successful now, and I am using my experience to help others, and that's all that mattered. And that's when I finally just let go, and I stopped thinking about them, and I thought that I was never getting an apology. And yeah, I'm glad that she had reached out to me, though, because it was a confirmation of who I am, and just that I don't need that apology anymore. Yeah. Because I am not that little girl, and I am not in that dark place, and I don't need validation from the popular girls. because I am confident in who I am.
What would you say now on the issue of suicide to anyone of any age, especially young people, but even adults who are in that dark place? Because you were there. You know what that's like to literally be in such a dark place that you're thinking of ending your own life.
Just that it gets better. When you're in that dark place, it doesn't feel like life is going to get better, but it does. And there are so many little things that we don't think about when we're in that place, you know, like the first day of spring when it's finally warm and sunny, or, you know, reading one of your favorite books. There's little things in life that can make you happy. And when you just take it one day at a time and one step at a time, and you slowly start to better yourself, is when you'll kind of pull yourself out of that hole that maybe someone else has dug for you, like somebody dug for me. And that, you know, life doesn't have to be dark and depressing all the time. And that when you like kind of let go of that negativity, and when you are able to let go of the past and you are able to confide in somebody, that your life will get so much better. And that there will be days when you will be sad again and you will be feeling depressed, but there will be so many good days that you won't even realize the bad days. They won't even compare.
And I'm going to ask your mom this, but a lot of times people miss signs. Mm-hmm. And part of it is because, as you admitted, you were really good at hiding. You were really good at telling not truths. So to the helpers, whether it's parents, teachers, friends, or counselors, people who are trying to help a troubled teen, what should they be on the lookout for, and what should they be aware of if they're really trying to figure out how much danger this young person is in?
Pry. You can only hide something for so long. And I think just always asking, you know, if you have a suspicion, ask the kid or even the adult, are you okay? Is there anything you want to talk about? You know, I am here for you. And even doing a little snooping. If you're afraid that somebody that you love or care about is going to hurt themselves, maybe snoop around their room. You know, there might be things like, you know, tools for self-harm, or even tools that could be used for a suicide, or even a journal. I mean, that might be a little overboard going through somebody's journal, but if it may help them, do a little snooping and just be present in their life. Look on their social media. Talk to their friends, because we often confide in people and say, don't tell anybody. But if the friend is truly worried, they'll talk to an adult about it. And just always being on the lookout, because people can be really good liars, and they can put on a mask that everything is okay when on the inside everything is just falling apart. And sometimes all it really takes is that one person saying, I'm here if you need anything.
How were you going to take your life?
I was going to take a bunch of pills, and
so that was your plan.
that was my plan.
So your mom would have probably found those if she'd been snooping around your room. Maybe were they pills that you should have had or not?
Yeah, well, they were in our house.
Okay.
So it's not like I had stolen any, but I took them when everybody left. So
Okay.
they probably wouldn't have found it, but she would have found, you know, tools of self-harm.
Yeah.
She probably would have found the note because I had written it a few days beforehand. But she was always a good prior. She was always in my room asking me if I was okay, always telling me if I wanted to talk that she was there. She
did all the right things.
Yeah, she did.
Do you still struggle with maybe the desire or thought about self-harming?
When I finally stopped, I was in 8th grade, and it was really difficult for me because for so long it had been my way of coping. And I decided that it wasn't healthy for me to be doing that. And instead of coping with self-harm, I started writing, whether it was poetry or just in my journal. whenever I had that desire to self-harm, I poured my feelings out into my journal. And that worked. And there were points throughout high school when I really felt like I needed that release. But whenever those thoughts came into my mind, I would turn to one of my friends, or I would turn to my journal, and I would let it out and I would feel better. And I haven't had thoughts like that in such a long time, I think, because I know how to cope in better ways. And I know that self-harming again would just bring me back all over again. And I know that I don't want to go there. And I think that anybody who self-harms can say that it's hard because of that, but that it gets better.
Yeah, I think you articulated it so well. It's really about not having another way to cope with this pain. So this is what I do that releases it. And if we can, anybody for any age, but if we can teach people other ways to help work through that pain that release it, that relieve it, that are healthy, not toxic, and writing is definitely one of the healthy ones that I try to teach, then they can replace that and learn another way to cope with those feelings. But do you think that young people really struggle with how to cope? It seems like we're not giving them the tools to cope with emotional pain that they really need.
I think that mental health is kind of seen as taboo, and that nobody really wants to admit that they need help, and that's why we don't really teach it in schools. And I think that's one of the most important things, that we need to give kids the tools they need in order to cope with all of these emotions, because at one point or another, any kid may have these feelings. And like you said, having a way to cope that is healthy is the key. And, I think that should be taught in school. I think that we need to get over this idea that crazy people go to counselors. That, sometimes you just need somebody to talk to. And that should not be seen as a bad thing. It's just like going to the doctor if you break your arm. You need your bone to heal. If you have a broken heart, or even something broken in your mind, so to say, we need professionals to help you.
Tell me about anything that you have done to build awareness about alopecia and what you know about the prevalence, or anything that you would like to share about that.
I think that, alopecia has been around for a really long time, obviously. I just think that not a lot of people knew about it, mainly because women especially felt ashamed and hid underneath their wigs. And now that there's so much more awareness about it, that so many more women are confident enough to go without a wig or to go without a hat and just be true to who you are. And that's something I did for a whole year. I lost my hair back in November of 2015. And I went a whole year with no hair. I went to school bald and beautiful. And I got a wig mainly because I missed having hair. I am such a girly girl, and I loved, doing my hair and curling my hair and, putting it up in ponytails and just feeling pretty. And that's why I got a wig. I'm not hiding. I know who I am. And I think that so many more women are feeling this way and are coming out and being brave.
Where do you see your nonprofit organization and this campaign going? I know you're just taking it one day at a time. You're still very, very young. But do you have visions for where this could go?
I want it to be big. I want everyone to know Cam's Dare to Be Different. And not just for me, but for other kids that have gone through this. I'm not the only kid that has experienced bullying. There are so many kids that experience bullying, and I want them to have their voice and stand up and talk like I do. Not a lot of people can get up in front of schools and share their own stories, but I think that by having me start, I'm empowering other kids to want to do the same. And, hopefully one day I can have, Cam's Dare to Be Different ambassadors that can share their own personal stories and, my message of being kind to people. And I want to keep going. Like you said, I am taking it one day at a time, but I'm hoping for a big future with my organization.
Cam, if people want to get in touch with you, how would they get in touch with you?
If anybody needs to reach out to me, they can reach out to me through my Cam's Dare to Be Different page. I always tell kids and even adults that I'm the only one that sees the messages, so their secrets are safe with me, of course, unless it's something that they tell me that I need to share with a professional. But I speak at schools. You can reach out to me through my page. I can direct you to my momager, who deals with all of that. But yeah, I'm there on my page. I'm live every day, sharing stuff and doing my thing.